What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is Monday, September 5th. This is your Daily Dog Takes. I am your host, Jacob at Roaches and 13. Welcome in to the first episode of my daily podcast. We're going to be doing these every day. Probably not Sundays. We're not going to do them on Sundays, so 6 days a week, I guess, is a little bit misleading here, all the way through the rest of the NFL season to talk about Browns. Today, we're going to talk about the two recent additions in Joe Haeg and Jesse James that were just signed, both former Pittsburgh Steelers, which is always very interesting and weird when you see the Browns signing somebody and the picture as them in a Steelers uniform, because it always just kind of throws me off a little bit for a second, because obviously it's not weird when you think about the grand scheme of things, but just kind of as fans, we find that a little bit weird. But I wanted to tell you guys, we are just 6 days away from the season, and you need to get, if you are looking to get decked out in all the greatest gear, check out our friends over at Homage. I will put a description in the link. If you're listening in the audio version, it is in the episode description. If you're on Twitter, I will put it in the comments down below to the great people over at Homage that make the best vintage Browns gear on the market. They got all kinds of great things coming up, including their NFL Blitz line that's coming out soon, and some other great stuff that's going to be introduced. And of course, I really enjoy the NBA Jam style t-shirts. I've got the Myles Garrett Nick Chubb one. It's probably my favorite, but I'm also working on getting an office shirt from there because I think they're pretty awesome. But if you're ready to get some great gear for the season, go check out Homage. I'll put a link in the description, and let's jump right into it. So off the top, I got to admit that I did not see another offensive lineman being added by the Browns. So getting the news about Joe Haeg signing was kind of a little bit surprising. I think that maybe I was a little bit too over optimistic about Jack Conklin, because I think this feels like a move because Conklin might not be ready. He could go to short-term IR. I believe they re-amended those rules, so I think short-term IR is now 4 weeks instead of 3, but it's still not a whole lot of time in the grand scheme of things. He could miss the first month. I don't know about you guys, but I personally feel like that there's enough talent on this offensive line to get through that first month without Conklin, if it leads to a much better version of Jack Conklin when we get him in potentially week 5 or 6 or whenever he may come back. I don't know that this move guarantees that that's what's going on. It might not be. It might just be insurance that, hey, we think he's good to go, but will his knee hold up? I could see a situation where that's kind of what it is, more so than him not being ready. But, just if I'm kind of being completely honest, week 1 probably was a little bit over optimistic for me, but I always try to err on the more optimistic side. A lot of times, at least this time of the year, I'll get very pessimistic if things go south very quickly. So you don't have to worry about that unbridled optimism. But I like Joe Haeg. I mean, looking at him, he was a decent player on a bad line last year in Pittsburgh. He doesn't play the whole season for Pittsburgh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 7 or 8. He played in 8 games for Pittsburgh last year. A much better pass blocker than run blocker, at least last season. He had an overall 74.8 pass blocking grade for the Steelers. Had a game at 83, 84, 75, 77, and 76. Had a few struggles in there as well. Ends up allowing 3 sacks over that time and 209 pass blocking snaps. So, I mean, you're looking at a guy on the right side potentially is where he has some flexibility. He has played some guard as well. So it continues to see Andrew Berry adding players that are able to play multiple different positions. It's just what he's got. I mean, it's mainly right tackle last year, although he played 78 right guard snaps, 94 right tackle snaps, 89 left tackle snaps, and 43 left guard snaps last year. So he played in all 4. I say mainly right tackle, but left tackle was only 5 snaps less. So, I mean, the dude played all 4 outside of center. He played all 4 of the other positions last year alone. Ends up with a 67 overall. He's had a 71 a couple years ago with Indy. His rookie year, he had a 72 run block, but overall, most of his seasons, he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. He brings 2,813 career offensive snaps. Both of these moves we're going to talk about today, they're just strictly depth moves, strictly trying to raise the basement of this roster, strictly trying to make sure that should injuries happen, like they did at times last year, especially isolated to that offensive line at times last year, you're just trying to make sure that if that happens, you have the pieces in place to try to for it to not be a disaster. Listen, you went 8-9 last year, so it wasn't a disaster, but there was some disastrous games, especially from the offensive line. James Hudson ended up having to be forced to play some left tackle early in the year. I like James Hudson a lot. I don't know that this is a move that tells you that they don't like James Hudson. I think this is just a move that tells you they think they have to have more depth. I think they, whatever they think about Conklin, and I think it also tells you whatever they think about Chris Hubbard, in that, yes, we really love Chris Hubbard, but can Chris Hubbard stay healthy after back-to-back seasons in which he was dealt, season-ending injuries? And it's just a concern. It's just something that should be in the back of your head, and I think they look at Joe Haeg and they say, yep, here's a dude that's played nearly 3,000 career snaps in 6 seasons, 4 in Indy, 1 in Tampa, 1 in Pittsburgh. He's fine. He's a decent player, good depth tackle, can play some guard. He's got experience on both sides. So, I mean, you look at him overall. So he plays 170 career snaps at left tackle, 249 at left guard, 793 at right guard, and 1,400 at right tackle. So there you go. Guy that can play all 4 positions. He's done it at this level, done it at a decent little clip, has a lot of experience. You can never have enough veterans, 6'6", 305 pounds, really nice size for swing tackle. So Joe Haeg, as far as the depth signing goes, yeah, great. Not going to really make some giant waves signing Joe Haeg, but, it's fine. So the Browns did exactly what we thought was going to happen, and they have added a 3rd tight end. We were wondering where it was going to come from. Was it going to come from trades? They did try to claim the tight end that got waived. I can't think of his name, from the New York Jets. He actually ends up going to the Bears, who claimed 8 people over the couple of days. I can remember that as a Browns fan, where you were your roster was so bad that, as soon as roster cuts came, there were 5 or 6 players that you would bring in, and because that was just where you are. But I find that to be a ridiculously large amount of players for the Bears, but we'll see. So the Browns end up signing Jesse James, the former Pittsburgh Steeler, who was originally signed or drafted by the Steelers in the 5th round of Penn State in 2015. He's got great size, 6'7", 250, 260, depending on where you're looking at. He's kind of a little bit more slender. He looks slender, more slender than what you would expect from a 250, 260 guy, but that 6'7" frame, it'll do that. He brings what you want out of a 3rd tight end. This is not a glamorous signing. This is not going to make the offense, the passing attack, more potent under Jacoby Brissett. This is not going to necessarily elevate the play of Jacoby Brissett or the offense because you added Jesse James, but you're looking at a guy here that has tons of experience in 7 years in the NFL. He's got, I think it's 105 catches, 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's not really going to be your number 1, number 2 in any situation. If he has to play there, if he has to make a 2 or 3 spot starts because of an injury or something like that, I think you could be okay. But he does what you want. He's got a big frame for throwing in the red zone. Jacoby loves the big body tight ends. Deshaun Watson likes it as well. Once he returns in December. And he's a decent blocker. He's actually a better pass blocker than he is run blocker, although his first couple years in Pittsburgh, which was many moons ago, he graded in the 70s. But last year he had a pass blocking grade of 76, led up 2 pressures and 30 opportunities. So, he's the last 3 years, 30, 61, and 83 snaps as a pass blocker. I mean, so Kevin Stefanski brings in the ninth, a 3rd tight end, and maybe he stays on the field to create some misdirection, and maybe he's out there to do some run blocking. And some pass blocking. He's an all right pass block or run blocker, a decent, pass blocker. He plays a lot of special teams. So, I mean, you're looking at a guy that it's exactly what they wanted. Just a guy that's can go in there every once in a while, create some mismatches with his 6'7" frame, maybe go up there and body up, a wide receiver, a corner there in the end zone, trying to make a touchdown, things like that. It's not neither one of these are these overly glamorous position signings. And I know that as Browns fans and fans in general, we're accustomed to wanting every move to be like this is why we win the Super Bowl, or wow, oh my goodness, we just got a number 1 target, or we did this, we did that. But these are very, I think, important signings just because it raises the basement. We keep talking about that, right? Raising the basement of the roster and putting yourself in a better position. And I think that both of these signings make you feel better about the depth of this team. If you've got some concerns about the overall top of the roster at certain positions, neither one of these things are going to do anything to you. If you're worried about the wide receiver room, obviously, I think David Njoku and Harrison Bryant are going to help supplement the wide receiver room. I think that's why the Browns are a little bit more comfortable with that room than some of us might be. But Jesse James isn't going to be the reason that he's not there to supplement the wide receivers. And we'll turn to the wide receiver room just for a little bit, talk a little bit about that as we wrap up your Monday edition of this quick hitter, this Daily Dog Takes episode 1. And I'll be back tomorrow with another set of interesting takes for you guys. We'll see what the world brings you. Later in the week, Thursday and Friday, we will begin the preview series for the Carolina Panthers. We will do the Carolina Panthers offense on Thursday and the Carolina Panthers defense on Friday, and that is the schedule for the rest of the season. We will probably more likely than not be able to bring in some guests from some Panthers fans and podcasters and things like that throughout the season on Thursdays and Fridays in order to do that. So I was thinking about the wide receiver room today, and I continue to think that it was interesting. I kind of thought, what are they going to add anything? They feel very comfortable with what they have. They like some of these young guys that they brought back on the practice squad. They kept them around. They have the ability to elevate, a couple of players a week. So could they potentially believe in those young players? They obviously believe in the young players in general, or we wouldn't be in this position where they're potentially rolling with these young players going into the training camp, let alone now going into the season. And I know the concerns with Anthony Schwartz, and as Schwartz defender, I'm definitely more worried now than I thought I would have to be. I didn't think that we'd get in the position that we're in, but here we are. I think the real wild card is Michael Woods, because I was thinking about this and I was trying to make sense of this. I hear Jake Burns talk about it all the time. He said with the Kellen Mond situation, he was like, normally I can see what the team's going for in every single signing. They'd be like, oh, I see why they did this. Will it work out? I don't know, but they would do it because of this. He was like, I don't know. I can't really make sense as to why with Kellen Mond. And so for me, I was trying to make sense with I thought Schwartz was going to show us something, and he did. He has shown some flashes in camp. It has not translated to the preseason whatsoever, but I at least saw some of the things early on that I had thought we would see, and I was like, okay, because if Schwartz can be this field stretcher, it just takes so much pressure off of absolutely everybody else on that offense, and mainly your number one guy in Amari Cooper. So he didn't have to try to, Cooper can do where he, excels the most and doesn't have to be the speed threat, because I think Amari is faster than people think, but he's not Tyreek Hill. He's not going to blow you away and win with these vertical routes over and over and over and again. They've got to find somebody that's able to do that. And so I thought, well, Schwartz is going to be that guy. I think he's going to take a step forward. He's only 21, going to be 22 years old in September. It is September now, so he might be 22 years old. I think around the season opener, I think it's the 11th or 12th is his birthday. And I thought, he's going to take these steps. And they have just not translated into the game. And I talked about this last week on my main show at the Brick Brown Show, that I think a lot of it has to do with the yips. I think he's in his head, and I don't know if he can get out of it. I truly just don't know if he can get out of it, and we'll find out. But Michael Woods, I think, is this guy, he's so fascinating. I wasn't sure about the drafting of Michael Woods. I'll be completely transparent when I was I'm not, I know quite a bit of players from that Oklahoma offense, and I don't know who this is. And then, of course, a lot of people will tell you, go back and watch his Arkansas tape, and it's definitely much better. He was used in a weird way at Oklahoma. He's got a big body, big frame. He has real long arms, but he didn't really utilize a big catch radius at Arkansas or Oklahoma. That was his biggest knock, with the big size and the frame and the long arms. He just didn't really use it the way you would think a guy with that build would. And so it kind of made you, feel a little bit weird about it. He comes into training camp and just blows it away for 10 days, the first week and a half. I was there the one day, the first day that fans were there, and I thought, wow, Mike Woods looks really good. Then by the time I came back a week and a half later, he was hurt, ends up missing the entire preseason. I'm thinking to myself, I thought that he wasn't going to make the roster, and if he did, it was going to be as an IR candidate, kind of like Jacob Phillips was last year, where you kind of stash him on IR, you keep him on 53. Then once it goes from season-long IR to short-term IR, you stash him on IR, potentially bring him back later if he's healthy, and you bring back one of the guys that you waived, potentially like Mike Harley or one of those guys that Mike Harley, of course, did come back to the practice squad. And I like Mike Harley. Mike Harley can get vertical from the slot, and I just don't know that the team can get vertical from really any place on the field. Maybe Demetric Felton, but Demetric Felton's more of a shifty athletic player than he's a straight line speed player, so I'm not really sure I still don't know that they have that. This is what this show is going to be, guys. If you don't like me rambling, just talking about the Browns, rambling about the Browns every morning, then you will not be interested in this podcast. I will not always be doing this alone. We will be trying to bring some guests on and having some really fun conversations as the season goes on. But Woods goes down. I didn't know if he'd make the roster. Then he makes the roster. They only keep 5 wide receivers, but they keep 6 if you count Felton. I thought that, I look at it and I'm kind of like, it's got to be Woods. Woods has got to be what they think their secret weapon, their trump card is, that will make this room serviceable. I'm not sure that there's some upside. I mean, if Anthony Schwartz can get you 25 to 35 good, deep catches this year. They can be posts, they can be comebackers where he makes it look like he's going to blow past you, then turns and comes back, and you're like 10 yards down the field because of the threat of his speed, and he can give you legitimate threats. Maybe. I think this wide receiver room could maybe bust it into the top 25 in the NFL. I think that the Browns like Michael Woods, and I think we're going to find out early. If he is healthy, I think they're going to try to feature him, to try to draw some attention to him, to draw attention away from the other guys that are more proven. I'm not sure if it'll work, but to me, trying to make sense of all of this, I think that is the wild card. Guys, I appreciate you joining me for today's Daily Dog Takes. I will be back tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. live, we'll be doing the Barking Brown Show here on Network 216. If you have not subscribed to the Twitch channel or go follow the Twitch channel, that is where we do all of our live episodes. We have content coming out just about every day. We have Ohio State, the Browns, the Cavs coming soon. We have Guardians. We have 12 Browns podcasts, all kinds of amazing things. Twitch.tv/network216. Check us out over there. Love you guys. See you guys next time.